Gospel of Mark, chapter 16. Since I quit wearing the real glasses and got these cheaters now, I can't see good enough to find them when I need them. There we go.
Amen.
Yes. Begin reading at verse 1 of Mark 16. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, Salome, brought spices, so that they might go to anoint Jesus' body. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they asked each other, who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb? But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe, sitting on the right side. And they were alarmed. Don't be alarmed, he said. You are looking for Jesus of Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you. Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. The word of the Lord, and thanks be to God. Well, this is an interesting passage. It doesn't seem to have an end. Did you notice that? In fact, I called the sermon this morning, when is an ending not an ending? And I think it's here. Years ago, when my oldest granddaughter was very young, I tried to get her to go to sleep. They would bring her to me to keep on certain occasions. She was little, so I would take her to the swing, and we would swing back and forth, and I would sing to her. And as soon as she got able to speak, she looked up at me one day and said, "Papa, just don't sing." So I started telling her stories, which I made up. Not one truth in any of those stories. I would tell her about the big blue dragon that lived down in the woods behind the parsonage. And I just make it up as I went along. And when I run out of a thought, I just stopped talking, thinking that maybe she's asleep. And she'd open her eyes, and she'd say, "Papa, that's not the end." And so I start making up more to the story, more to the story, more to the story. And finally, when I talked about all I could talk and imagine about all I could imagine, I just stopped talking and hoping she wouldn't say anything. And if I was fortunate, she wouldn't. She would be sound asleep at the sound of my voice, droning on and on and on and on. I started believing in that big blue dragon after a while. But anyway, her words to me, "Papa, that's not the end. Keep talking." That's almost what I want to say at the end of verse 8. "Mark, that can't be the end. Tell us more. Tell us more." Now, Mark is the first gospel in chronology. Mark is the first gospel. And so it seems like everybody is clamoring around to complete it. A lot of the so-called scholars would say that verse 8 was not even completed in the original manuscript of Mark, that it says something to the effect of, "Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from," and of course it implied the tomb. But it ends with the word "from." You can't end a sentence with that word. Grammatically, you can't. It don't work. From what? I was watching one of those silly TV cop shows the other day. One detective is going out to chase down a clue, and his partner looks up at him like he's kind of crazy, and he turns around and he says, "I'm going to investigate. Do you want to come with?" And I'm learning that's the way folks talk now. We end sentences with prepositions. We're going to go from, "You want to come with." Well, a lot of those so-called scholars say that's the way Mark actually ended his gospel. I don't really know. I wasn't there. I've never seen the first manuscript, so I can't tell you. But I do know that we human beings sometimes have a hard time with just an empty tomb. We gotta know more. There's something in our psyche that has to know more. Jesus came out of the tomb. He is not here. Why? There's a young man at the tomb, at the entrance, and he says, "He's gone ahead of you. He's gone to Galilee. Go tell his disciples to meet him there." Well, that's very, very vague. They still haven't seen him. We know that the longer ending of Mark was added and known to people around within the first 100 years anyway. And it goes ahead and fleshes out the story that when Jesus rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene. And he goes on to tell about the conversation and to tell what happened. You see, it just doesn't feel right to see an empty tomb. We must encounter the Christ who came out of the tomb. It does us no good just to see an empty tomb. I've had people tell me, now bear with me because I'm going to say something that can be controversial, And I'm willing to take on the controversy, but hang with me. If we're told that you just believe it. You just believe it. And so we have people, we say, do you believe that Jesus died, was buried, and rose from the grave? Oh, yes, I believe it. Yes. But nothing about their lives changed. They may have seen the empty cross in their mind and in their conscience. They may have seen the empty tomb in their minds and in their conscience. But somehow or another they have missed that holy encounter with the risen Lord. We need to experience that. I remember making a confession of faith when I was 8 years old. It was a confession of what I believed. Yes, I believed it. You know what I believed in the story of Jesus at 8 years old? Now, let me hasten to say, I believe that was the moment that the loving hand of Jesus, the Spirit of God, the Holy Heavenly Father, brought me into the family and gave me forgiveness and salvation. I believe it happened right then. But it wasn't because of anything I did. It was because God loved me so much. But at 8 years old, I went down, growing up in the Baptist church. Baptists don't do confirmation. They should. But that little Baptist church didn't do confirmation. You believe it. You know why I believed it? Because Mama would have beat the daylights out of me if I didn't believe it. Children didn't ask, why is this true when I was little? The answer would be because I said so. It seems like back in the day our elders were so important to us, and they were so faithful to care for us and to love us, even to the point of suffering for us, that we trusted our elders. And we believed things a lot of times because they said it. They said it. Daddy told me a lot of things. And I thought, that's pretty far-fetched. But I believed it anyway because he said it. And I come to learn later in life that those little things he told me that seemed so far-fetched worked. I remember he told me, son, don't ever lie. It won't ever serve you well. Don't ever tell a lie. It won't ever serve you well. Be honest even if it makes you look bad. Made sense. Makes sense now. It didn't make any sense back then. All right? An empty tomb, is it enough? Is it enough for you to see an empty tomb and does that alone give you salvation? Does that alone move you forward in faith? Does that alone do it for you? I've never been to the Holy Land. I've had a lot of people that wanted me to go to the Holy Land. I just never have been. No particular reason for that. But I know people who have been, and they come back and they tell stories about being baptized in the river over there. And they come back and they talk about looking into the cave, into the empty tomb, and what a change that made in their life. And somehow I felt secondary or second class because I hadn't looked in the empty tomb, and I've not waded out into the river over there. And so I somehow felt spiritually second class, but then I realized I've encountered the risen Christ. I may not have encountered his grave, but I have encountered the risen Christ. He is alive. I know he lives. The old gospel hymn does not say, I know he lives because the grave is empty. It says, I know he lives, for he lives. Where? Within my heart. Brothers and sisters, it's important. It's important for you to encounter the Christ who lives. Don't just trust in ritual. Don't just trust in the recitation of certain creeds or certain words, but trust in the fact that He lives within you. For years, I would doubt and I would have fear. Because I grew up in a church where you either went to heaven or you went to hell. And there was no in between. And the only way you got into heaven was to believe. But you could go to hell a whole lot of ways. You could. Pretty sure you still can. But the only way into heaven for me is to encounter Jesus. And so I remember several times, but I remember a time in my life where something holy and wonderful happened. And you couldn't make me doubt that Jesus lives today, no matter what you did or what you said. This world, the horrible things that are going on in this world, the divisive politics, all of the stuff that's going on out in this world, cannot make me doubt for even a second that God's Son, Jesus, is coming to receive His church. You can't make me doubt that. Not because the tomb is empty, not because the cross is empty, not because Mama and Daddy said so, not now. Now, it is because I've met Jesus. Have you truly met Him? Are you still bewildered when you stand alone? As Mary did in the longer evening of Mark. She's standing there, but Jesus appears to her. And He gives her peace. Has He given you that peace? Has He given you a commission to go and tell? Has He sent you forth? Do you know this Jesus for yourself? Have you encountered Him?